What you're watching on your screen right now is one of the first films ever made. It was created by Thomas Edison in 1894 and features Eugen Sandow showing off his impressive muscles. You see, we don't usually have video footage of people from this era, but Sandow's physique was so awe-inspiring that Edison considered him to be the perfect man and the ideal body to showcase in front of a camera. But who was Eugen Sandow? Let us explore the life of this legendary man and figure out how exactly he came to be the world's first bodybuilder. Sandow was born in 1867 in Prussia, in a city which is now called Kaliningrad. One of the most important events in Sandow's life happened at the young age of 10 when he visited Italy with his family. It was here where he discovered ancient Greek and Roman statues. He immediately fell in love with these depictions of ancient heroes, to the point where he decided he would try to sculpt his own body to the shape of these statues. Throughout the years, Sandow would return to Italy and even take measurements of the statues he admired the most so he could build his body to the correct proportions. At the time, these statues were not considered something which could be recreated in real life. They were thought to be nothing more than the imagination of an artist. But Sandow would prove them wrong, and it is this mentality which would fundamentally make Sandow a bodybuilder, as the focus of his training was to achieve a certain physique rather than just to perform feats of strength. Now that's not to say that Sandow wasn't strong, quite the opposite. Since there was no money to be made in bodybuilding, Sandow would perform in shows as a strongman, in order to make a living while he continued to develop his muscles. A funny anecdote from his early days as a performer was one of his unorthodox methods of promoting his shows. He was performing in Amsterdam at the time, and sprinkled all over the city were these strength testing machines. Basically, the modern equivalent of these machines you would find in an arcade where you punch a bag or you hit a hammer and it gives you a score. Sandow found that he could put a coin in these machines, and doing nothing more than following the provided instructions, he was actually strong enough to physically break the machine. So one night he went around Amsterdam and broke every machine he could find. As you can imagine, this caused quite a scene, and people wanted to find out who was breaking all these machines. Eventually, the police caught up with Sandow and detained him. At first, they didn't believe his story. They just didn't think someone could possibly be strong enough to cause such damage. So they were convinced that he was using some kind of tool. Sandow asked for the opportunity to prove his innocence. So the police got one of these machines, and he actually broke it, following the instructions and using nothing but his hands right in front of the police. With this stunt, he not only escaped prosecution, he also got a great deal of publicity. In fact, the policeman even showed up at his show the very next day. Sandow would continue to perform as a strongman under the wing of the famous Professor Attila, touring all over Europe and eventually even America. He would become a superstar. Here are a couple of the many feats of strength he would perform in his shows. He would get on his hands and legs face up and have an assistant place a large plank across his body. Then a man riding a horse would walk across the plank over Sandow's stomach. He would also lift this hilarious human dumbbell overhead with a person sitting in each side. One of his most popular acts was walking around the stage carrying a pony. He could also single arm snatch 180 pounds and bench press 270 pounds. As you can see, Sandow's strength was no joke. He was widely considered to be one of the strongest men on the planet. But on top of all of that, he also had an incredibly aesthetic physique, with huge arms and shoulders and a ripped six-pack. Sandow noticed that the audience was sometimes even more mesmerized by his impressive muscles than by his displays of strength. So his shows often included posing routines as well. Eventually, Sandow would retire from strongman and go on to focus purely on bodybuilding. He would continue to show off his physique in these so-called muscle display performances. His body was considered a work of art, and people were paying for the opportunity to see it. Remember, Sandow had built his body according to the measurements of ancient Greek and Roman statues. So when he was posing on the stage, the audience couldn't believe that a living and breathing human could look like a marble sculpture. Even though it was only Sandow performing, we could possibly consider these to be the very first bodybuilding shows. In the late 1890s, he opened the first Institute of Physical Culture, where he trained others and taught his methods. He also started publishing a monthly magazine titled Sandow's Magazine of Physical Culture. He then published a series of books between 1897 and 1904. The last book was titled Bodybuilding, and this is actually where the term bodybuilding comes from. Sandow also organized the world's first bodybuilding competition in 1901, where he completely sold out London's Royal Albert Hall. The planning for this legendary competition started 3 years prior, as he was inundated by applicants wanting to compete. Sandow spent these years organizing smaller shows all across England, where he would pick a winner and grant them an invitation to what would be named the Great Competition in 1901 in London. Sandow wasn't just looking for the largest physique. He was judging based on the balance of the physique, the conditioning, and the general health of the competitor. Sandow was offering cash prizes as well as gold, silver, and bronze statuettes of himself to the winner of the Great Competition. On September 14, 1901, over 15,000 people filled up the Royal Albert Hall, with many more being turned away for lack of room. 60 of the finest physiques in England took to the stage, and the world's first true bodybuilding competition was underway. Sandow, with the help of 2 other judges, started closely examining the men and quickly narrowed them down to 12 finalists. These 12 men each stood on their own pedestal and performed a set of compulsory poses. Then it was time for the judges to pick a winner, and Mr. William Murray took the first place Sandow Trophy. The Sandow Trophy continued to be the most prestigious prize in bodybuilding, and even to this day it's handed to the winner of the Mr. Olympia each year. So I'm sure you've realized by now that calling Eugen Sandow the father of bodybuilding is no exaggeration. His physique and his teaching inspired millions across the world to get fit and improve themselves. The contributions this man has made to our sport cannot possibly be explained or appreciated in this one video. So if you're interested, I highly encourage you to go do your own reading, as this man's life was truly fascinating, and this video really only serves as an introduction. For more old school bodybuilding content, make sure to subscribe to this channel, and please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.